Hello, and welcome to the Feeling Good podcast, where you can learn powerful techniques to change the way you feel. I am your host, Dr. Rhonda Borowski, and joining me here in the Murrieta studio is Dr. David Burns. Dr. Burns is a pioneer in the development of cognitive behavioral therapy and the creator of the new team therapy. He is the author of Feeling Good, which has sold over 5 million copies in the United States and has been translated into over 30 languages. His latest book, Feeling Great, contains powerful new techniques that make rapid recovery possible for many people struggling with depression and anxiety. Dr. Burns is currently an emeritus adjunct professor of clinical psychiatry at Stanford University School of Medicine.
Hello. No, sorry. Mistake. Big mistake. Big mistake. Hello, Dr. Borowski.
Oh, and
welcome to this edition of the Feeling Good podcast. And let us know if you like this more serious version, Matt. Well, some of them on the survey were complaining about the silly "Hello, Rhonda," so I'm swearing off it, and we'll see how they like the more serious version.
Okay, that sounds good. As long as we can still occasionally do that behind closed doors.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
And everyone, this is obviously the Feeling Good podcast, and it's episode 469. And since you've heard Matt May's voice, you know this is an Ask David episode. And we have really good questions today. I thought I would start with a very brief endorsement today from Selena. And she wrote to you, "I recently discovered your work, Dr. Burns, last month, which was perfect timing since I was on medical leave for the entire month of July. I've been thoroughly engrossed in your books, the podcast, and your other work during this time, and I'm already seeing positive changes. I am a nice person who's been in therapy for 2 decades, and I still feel stuck with anxiety getting worse. I'm learning to be my own very effective therapist. Finally, with an abundance of gratitude, Selena."
Well, thank you, Selena. We just love that response, and keep up the fantastic work you're doing. And as you work not only toward recovery, but enlightenment. And it just gives us great joy to hear from you and others like you who are actually benefiting from our efforts here on the Feeling Good podcast. It means the world to us, because we throw our hearts and souls into this. We get a chance to hang out with our colleague, Dr. Matthew May, just to keep it formal, and who we informally think is one of the world's greatest therapists in this era or any era, Freud included. And but it's just fun to hang out. We love you, Matt, and so great to get your point of view. Well, this is going to be a fun one today.
Yes, it
Looking
is.
forward to it. Yeah. Great to see you guys.
Well, let's start with Megan's question. She is a technology and science editor at Axios. And she asks, "I'm working on an article on job anxiety due to fears of AI, artificial intelligence, taking over our work. Can you speak to that?"
Yeah, and she had written to me, and I initially brushed her off. And thank you, Megan, for allowing us to put your question here. And because I've never treated AI anxiety and couldn't think of anything to say. But then I started thinking of a lot of things to say and sent her several emails. And I think she's going to use those emails in her article about AI replacing people's work and the anxiety that people have and how we would treat that anxiety. And so I included in the show notes a couple of my emails, and we can go over some of the points here. But I could get the ball rolling on the thing.
Her sub-question was, what strategies are most effective in managing it? Is that what you answered?
Well, I just tried to say something of value, what I had to contribute.
Groovy.
Should I share that, or
you should? Yes.
Good enough?
Yes, because people want to hear what you have to say.
I don't like to include most effective strategies for something I've never treated because it sounds a little on the fraudulent side. That's why I blew her off initially, and then I started thinking of some things, and I'll mention a few categories. Starting with number one is that there's I'll give two of the concepts I shared with her. One is healthy versus unhealthy negative emotions. And sometimes negative emotions are, kind of neurotic and based on distortions and need psychotherapy, like if someone's having panic attacks or social anxiety or phobia, fear of elevators, for example. But sometimes there's healthy fear, like if you're walking alone in a dangerous neighborhood at 1 a.m, you're going to be fearful and anxious, and that's a healthy emotion. You wouldn't want to be taking Valium pills or go get psychotherapy, because the fear means you are in real danger and you have to act on that. Your fear is telling you something. And that was my first thought about this, is that if you are in danger of losing your job because of AI, or you've lost it, and you're feeling anxious about your life, that's a healthy anxiety needing actual responses in the real world to take action, because your anxiety is telling you, hey, dude, you're out of work and you've got a family to support. Our son has been in that position with a lovely new wife and a wonderful 5-month-old baby, and his work and user interface work. It used to be anytime he wanted work, he could just apply to any large corporation, get a very lucrative position, helping them with their web presence and interface and make it more user-friendly and effective. But now AI has taken over that, and so he's had a pretty rocky time of trying to find new work, and he's even explored being like a food server in a fancy restaurant or something.
Oh.
And even there, it's really, really hard to get in, and you have to know all this amazing amount of information about wines and stuff that he doesn't know. And he tried being a house painter, and he was doing that until he had a back problem or something that it made it impossible for him to continue with that, and it's so we're very, very familiar with that. Now he's pursuing a career in hypnosis for somatic problems, and he's loving that, actually. And we had him on a podcast recently. But that was my first thought, and then my second thought is that if you're in this position of being threatened by AI, and of course, I pointed out that our Feeling Great app, it's not intended to compete with therapists. It's not therapy. It's a self-help tool, a powerful AI, specifically trained AI for self-help. But our data shows that it's and this is just based on naturalistic studies, but with thousands of app users, that it's actually the percent improvement that the app gets is staggering compared with, if you look at outcome studies of cognitive therapy for depression, you see like maybe an average of 45. I read an analysis of the 45 best controlled outcome studies, and it was a 54% reduction in depression scores over like a several month or 6 month or longer period of time. And the app is getting the latest version, a 60 to 70% reduction within an hour and a half of most users. And that's staggeringly different. Matt, I think you can probably do that fast, effective, dramatic work. But I think it's very clear that very few therapists in the United States or even around the world would have any chance of causing such rapid reductions. And it's not only depression, it reduces anxiety, guilt, shame, inadequacy, loneliness, hopelessness, and anger all simultaneously. But not surprisingly, I think therapists aren't giving us much support with our app. Mm-hmm. And they're even going to state legislatures trying to make it to make our app out illegal.
Really?
Yeah. Illinois, Utah, and Illinois have recently passed legislature making it illegal to use AI, to create AI-based therapy. Now, we're saying what we're doing isn't therapy. It's clearly not. It's just a self-help tool. But there's a lot of powerful reaction to it. So these are not trivial things. But at any rate, you've got an external problem and an internal problem. And the internal problem, if you're at threat of losing your job to AI, you can get unhealthy feelings because a lot of our culture is based on the achievement addiction, the Calvinist work ethic. You are what you do. And that's one of the belief systems that is most commonly lurking behind various types of depression and anxiety. Because we think our worthwhileness as a human being depends on our achievements and accomplishments. And even when it's taken away involuntarily, there's a tendency to have a lot of distorted thoughts and tell yourself, this is all my fault and I'm letting my family down. And what if I'm out of work forever and end up in a homeless or something of this nature. So it isn't always healthy anxiety. There can be typical anxiety caused by cognitive distortions, and that's something that I, as a shrink, would have a great deal to offer. But that was the extent, I think, of my thinking. And usually I have you guys go first, but because this is a last minute sprung on you. And Megan said we could put the question in there, and then later we'll put a link to her article on the topic in Axios. And I think she'll at least quote some of the emails that I sent to her and maybe get some other experts chiming in as well. So my role in her article may be somewhat minimal, I don't know. But anyway, I got kind of excited thinking this is a pretty great question after all.
Yeah, it is a great question, and those are really great answers. So I put it in ChatGPT. I decided to ask AI the AI question.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah. So ChatGPT says that when you have job anxiety due to fears of AI taking over your work, they have 5 or 6 different responses. The first one was be with the uncertainty and just feel the
Say that again.
Be with the uncertainty. Feel the human feeling of anxiety. Embrace all things human. Catch yourself when you're catastrophizing. And lean into nuance.
That sounds so bullshitty.
I know. What does lean into nuance mean?
Yeah. Well, what time of day would you recommend I lean into nuance? And where could I find it? Like, that would be a new type of chair or bed
Yeah.
that I could lean into?
That you lean into so you don't fall over.
It's very subtle, though.
Nuance. I can't believe how lame that is. Shame on you, ChatGPT. But fortunately, you're not going to put any therapists out of business. So.
Right.
I don't know if I have too much to add to this. I am kind of getting on to the boomer stage of my life and don't do much with AI. I have heard about this topic, and I know that a lot of people who were just thrilled to have computer science degrees in the past because it was almost a guaranteed job are now suddenly out of jobs and feeling desperate. And many other fields I think are like that. I understand in radiology, for example, the AIs can detect things that no human radiologist can detect. And so we're about to go through a big change as a society in terms of how the economy works, and so I think you're right, David, that there's a very real component to this fear that people may not have the ability to do the same jobs that they were doing, and that's already coming true. When I hear about anxiety, go ahead.
Yeah, and it's happened throughout human history. Going back to the cavewoman era, cave person, I guess is the proper way they used to refer to it 50 million years ago.
Cave person.
But the changes of the wheel comes in, and even more recently, horse and buggy and blacksmiths, and then suddenly automobiles come in, and a lot of people are kind of on the wrong side of things, and nobody wants their horses and buggies anymore. Or their blacksmithing goes way out of favor, and even now AI is putting out Google out of business. I think, well, I have no idea what their business model is, and they have an AI, but Jeremy tells me that he's using AI for his searches, not using Google anymore.
Wow.
Because the AI searches, fantastically, and then comes up with intelligent information and answers and can analyze things. But so anyway, where are you going with that, Matt?
I'm not exactly sure. I think we could go in a lot of different directions there. Just to answer Megan's question about this anxiety that's coming up for a lot of people about losing their jobs. The first method that I think of when I hear anxiety is the what if technique.
Oh yeah.
That often helps us just drill down to what are the real negative thoughts that are upsetting us. And sometimes that helps us figure out, okay, is this a rational fear or an irrational fear?
Can we go through that right now to bring it to life for people so they'll know what we're talking about?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I'll be a computer programmer.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm really. So I'll be the patient.
Oh, you're the patient.
No, Matt wants to be the patient.
Yeah, and Rhonda, you and I can both be the patient.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'll use the what if.
Will treat us with this what if technique, and we'll give negative thoughts, and then Matt, you'll use the what if technique, and drill down to our core fear, and we'll be doing this on paper. So our listeners should do this on paper too, if you'd like to learn how to do this technique. If you're a shrink or a general person with anxiety. Do it on paper, and then you'll learn something. So you start with a negative thought, and I'll toss out the simple thought. I might lose my job. You write that down, then you put a downward arrow under it.
Well, isn't it? I might lose my job to AI.
Yeah. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And then you put a downward arrow under it, and the downward arrow means if that's true, if that happens, what are you the most afraid of? What's the worst that can happen? And then we'll keep drilling down. What are you the most afraid of, and see where it goes. So you can kick it off here, Matt.
All right. Well, let's imagine we've done a good deal of empathy. So say empathy, empathy, empathy.
Oh, yeah.
David, I understand you're feeling pretty anxious and worried about AI, and you're a computer programmer, and AI has taken over computer programming. And I wondered if you'd be open to trying out the what if technique, just to understand that anxiety a little better.
Yeah, because I'm worried I might lose my job to AI, and they recently laid off 50% of our company for this reason, and they're planning another layoff soon. And I think my head's on the chopping block now.
Oh wow! So they recently laid off 50% of your company, and they've got another layoff scheduled. And you're feeling like your head is on the chopping block, and I can hear the anxiety in your voice. And for the what if technique, if you wouldn't mind, let's both write on paper the thought. I'm going to edit it slightly from "I might lose my job" to AI to "Could you write down I will lose my job" to AI.
Okay.
And does that thought make you feel anxious?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah. I'd be very anxious, and my identical twin Rhonda will say what I'm the most afraid of if I lose my job.
Well, hi there, Rhonda. It's nice to be doing therapy with you as well. And what? Let's say you said you're feeling anxious about this when you hear this thought. I will lose my job to AI. Could you tell me why you would feel anxious about that? What if you lost your job to AI? What would you be most anxious about?
I'll lose my source of income.
You'll lose your source of income, and could we write that thought down too?
Sure.
I'll lose my source of income. And does that thought make you feel anxious?
Extremely.
Okay, so we're on the right track there. And then I'd ask you the same question again. What if you lost your source of income? What would you be most anxious or worried about?
We'll take turns answering. Okay,
David.
Rhonda?
Yeah, David.
Great.
What if you were to lose your source of income?
Well, then, people will look down on me because I'm unemployed and I can't support my family.
And so could we write that as two separate thoughts? One is people will look down on me. And then the second thought is I won't be able to support myself or my family.
Yeah.
And I'm imagining these thoughts are creating a lot of anxiety and fearfulness and worry for you as well. Is that right?
Yes.
And I know it sounds a little ridiculous at this point, but I'd ask you to just draw another downward arrow underneath those two thoughts. Now let's imagine both of those become true, become a reality for you. What if you weren't able to support yourself or your family and people were looking down on you? What would you be most anxious about at that point?
Well, I'll lose my home and I'll become homeless and my children will be taken away from me.
We're looking for something negative, Rhonda.
Yeah. Did you have any negative thoughts? Yeah. No. That sounds really, really frightening and anxiety provoking. Let's write down those thoughts. I'll lose my house. I'll become homeless, and my children will be taken away from me. Could we write those as three separate thoughts?
Sure.
And I'm imagining your anxiety is going up as we're talking about this and going into this awful nightmare fantasy. But I'd ask you to keep going with me if that's okay. And David, what if all those things happened? What if you lost your house, you were homeless, and your children were taken away from you? What would you be most anxious about next?
Well, that would mean I was worthless, and I'd be miserable forever.
And the pause you're hearing is just me taking some notes. So those are two other extremely important thoughts, David. And one of them is that would mean I'm worthless. And do you mean like if I don't have a job and if I can't support my family?
Yeah.
That would mean I'm worthless.
And people, if they're looking down on me too, all of those things, people aren't approving of me, they're judging of me, and I don't have a job and can't support myself. All those things would make me worthless.
Got it.
If I was worthless, then I think I would be miserable, until the day I died.
So, that's so helpful for me to understand that. So, part of it is that you would tell yourself, "I'm worthless." That's the negative thought. And that would be true if people were looking down on you, if you didn't have a job, if you couldn't support yourself. Is that right?
Yeah.
And then the other thought is, I'll be miserable forever.
Yeah.
And let's take a pause. That's usually towards the bottom of the what if technique. I'll be miserable forever. But do you think there's more to it than that? If we just
No,
review,
I think we're at the bottom of the barrel.
That's
I
usually
agree.
the bottom of the barrel right there. And so you can imagine that at this point you're probably feeling pretty intense anxiety, and maybe also some other feelings. Like, are you feeling some worthlessness? Are you feeling some hopelessness? Or what else is coming up for you?
And anxious and ashamed and depressed and alone and unwanted and rejected and frustrated and maybe even a bit pissed off.
I would imagine so. All those feelings make so much sense to me, and I'm feeling like I'm feeling really close to you. I'm thinking we can do some really good work on this. And maybe we could write down those feelings together and measure how intense they are for you right now.
Yeah. But I'm trying to figure out what my self-defeating beliefs might be at the core here.
Yeah, we could look at a list of them together, and I think I'm seeing a couple, but and maybe
I'm
we
seeing
can include this in the.
Too. Maybe we can share notes and see if they're the same or different.
Yeah, is one of them the approval addiction?
Yeah.
And is achievement addiction one of them too?
Yeah. That's so surprising because they're exactly the same two that I wrote down.
Well, it's almost as if I learned how to do therapy from David.
Yeah. And so one of the themes here, I think, is that although the loss of the job is real, it's probably going to happen. Or let's say it is going to happen. Epictetus told us that our negative feelings don't result from the events of our life, but our thoughts about them, and that's hard for people to grasp or to incorporate or to see that. But it's very true, and it's potentially very healing and very liberating. But people don't think that way. They think I'm upset because I've been screwed over by the universe and I've lost my job, and then everyone's going to reject me and look down on me, and I'll be worthless for that reason. And it's those distorted thoughts and those beliefs that create 100% of the unhealthy negative feelings. Some healthy fear is appropriate. If you're going to lose your job, you're going to have to figure out what new job am I going to looking for? How am I going to support myself next? How am I going to scramble at this stage in evolutionary history when suddenly things are radically changing for every person on the surface of the earth? And a lot of us are going to have to scramble and learn to adapt to the new circumstances. But the loss of self-esteem and the anxiety and the feeling of worthlessness is never caused by the loss of the job, but 100% by these beliefs, the achievement addiction, the love addiction, and all the distorted thoughts that they trigger.
Yeah, well said, David. I think that we're really looking at the key to understanding all different types of anxiety and worry that is based on those self-defeating beliefs. And if we can use the what-if technique, that helps uncover them. And then once we have them written down, trapped on paper, then we can do some really magical work with those thoughts.
Yeah. Now, to summarize again, Rhonda or Matt or both of you, what is the what-if technique, and how do you do it if you're a therapist or a general citizen? What do you start out with? What's this downward arrow business all about? And And how do we get the core fear? By the way, the core fear is becoming homeless and losing children. What's another technique we could use to deal with that fear?
Imaginal exposure. There'd be a lot of methods that feared fantasy, someone judging us for not having a job.
Yeah, fear. Oh, of course. Yeah, all those techniques. How would the imaginal exposure work? What's the point of that if I'm terrified of ending up homeless and having everyone disapprove of me? How would I defeat that fear using imaginal exposure or so-called cognitive flooding?
So there would be a couple steps ahead of that just to make sure we've got permission to dial down that anxiety and have looked at the resistance. But the cognitive flooding or exposure would just be to imagine that situation as vividly as possible. And the cognitive component is to repeat those negative thoughts to ourselves, to say them out loud with the intention of surrendering to and going into the anxiety. And we're not playing anxiety's game anymore. We're not going to run from it. We're going to chase it, and that's what defeats anxiety. And we desensitize to the upsetting thoughts and images and fantasies.
So you create a script in which you are homeless. You can record the script or write it out, but you imagine yourself being homeless and imagine making it as awful as possible and make yourself as anxious as possible. And that's one of the things that Jill offered and emphasized is this safety behaviors that sabotages exposure, where people try to run away from the anxiety even during the exposure. And the idea with imaginal exposure or cognitive flooding is to make yourself as anxious as possible for as long as possible, to get it up to 100% and keep it at 100%. Until finally you get bored with the script and find it impossible to make yourself anxious. That's how it works. And that might take 10 minutes of exposure. It might take 1 minute of imaginal exposure. It might take 3 hours of doing it. But one of the cool things that Jill said is if you stick with the imaginal exposure, it's impossible for it not to be successful. I thought that was really cool and really true, that if you stick with it long enough, eventually the terror will disappear.
Yeah, you can get bored of anything, right? And I've also heard of a very adventurous young therapist named David who actually did in vivo exposure to the fear of losing everything and threw his wallet down the drain.
I forgot about that. Yeah, good point.
Hitchhiked somewhere. Yeah. Is that right?
Yeah. I left medical school with just a jean jacket and a quarter, and to see how long I could survive. And we're not supposed to repeat stories. I don't remember if I've told this story before, but I ended up surviving for about homeless for about 2 weeks. And it was actually quite an adventure.
Is that when you drove through the desert?
No. This was, I just walked out of my where I was living there at Stanford somewhere or in Palo Alto, and I started hitchhiking. So I must not have had my motorcycle in those days, and I got all the way to Highway 1, the Pescadero Beach area, something in through there. But it was getting dark, and the traffic slowed down, so I wasn't getting any rides. And so, and it was getting cold. And I said, well, I wonder what animals do when it gets cold at night. I mean, how do they keep warm? I forgot about the fact that they have fur coats on. And so I reasoned in my weird way, they probably get under a bush and cover themselves with leaves and dirt to keep warm. And so I said, I think I'll try that. And so I found some real bushy area and crawled under it and covered myself with dirt and leaves. And then it started raining and the dirt turned into mud. And I said, oh man, this sucks. This isn't going to work at all. So I kept going over, and I finally got on Highway 1, and then I started hitchhiking down Highway 1, and there wasn't much traffic at that time. It was must like 1 or 2 in the morning. And finally, these 2 girls picked me up. I'm not supposed to use that term, but that's what we used in those days. And they were kind of quasi-awesome. And they said they were going down to Monterey. And so they gave me a ride down there, and I think let me sleep in their car. And then the next day, I found out about this abandoned house where a lot of people were living, and like 40 people in a commune. So I went over there, and they gave me a place to sleep at night. We like it was all a concrete floor in the basement, and we would be sleeping right next to each other. But I got a little strip of concrete that I could sleep on. And then in the daytime, we would go to the grocery stores in that area in Monterey, or wherever we were, Pacific Grove, someplace. I think it was Monterey. And we would take the rotten food that they'd thrown out, like rotten tomatoes and potatoes and stuff, out of the trash barrels. And then we'd bring them back to the commune and cut the rotten parts away and throw them in a big pot and make something to eat for everybody and stuff like that. And it was actually a very interesting time. And then I was thinking, there's all these really cute girls here, and I'd really kind of like to get laid, to tell you the truth. That was my thought. and just see, but how am I going to make that happen? Because I'm just a homeless person. Of course, they're homeless too. And then I thought, well, psychodrama leaders and countergroup leaders often become like alphas. So I could offer to do an encounter group tonight for anyone who wants to come. And about 20 people came, including this really awesome looking young lady, we'll put it like that. And after the encounter group, it was probably a 2-hour encounter group or something like that. And it's fairly dramatic. And then she kind of seemed curious, at the end was cozying up a little bit. And I said, well, would you want to, take a walk down to the beach? And, it'll be kind of moonlight down there. And she was real interested in that. And then, the inevitable kind of unfolded. So it was pretty cool. And, but after a couple of weeks, I got tired of it. And I said, as much as I hate medical school, I think it would be better than this, and so I hitchhiked back to Stanford again and picked up my old life. But it wasn't, it wasn't what I thought. It wasn't like living in a castle with servants waiting on you, but it was a fun, exciting two weeks.
Did that defeat your fear of being without resources and being homeless? Did that fear go away completely?
I didn't quite get your question.
Was that helpful for any anxiety that you had?
Oh, yeah, because then later on, when Melanie and I started living together during the year after medical school, I took a second year off, and we actually became homeless again in the same area of Pacific Grove and Carmel Valley. And we had a baby come in, and we didn't have any money or anything. But I wasn't afraid of it. We just would go around and, hitchhiking around and ask people if we could sleep on their living room floor or something like that. People were really nice. And we were homeless again there for a while. That's
a very profound way of overcoming that anxiety.
Yeah.
I anyway. Inadvertently overcame my anxiety once on a hiking trip. I was in the Sierra and was fishing and was catching fish and just cooking them on a fire. And it was one of the happiest moments of my life. And I realized,
oh, wow,
this would be kind of okay. If I didn't have any career or money, I would just become a fisherman and hang out and fish and eat the food that I caught. And so I had some fear of losing work and not having any money and that kind of thing, but it kind of vanished when I had that experience.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Pointing to the power of exposure.
Yeah, and I also, when I was, I think, a medical resident or intern or something like that, but we were in Philadelphia. So I must have been at Penn. I used to have the idea, what if I lose my career or lose my license? And then I used to tell myself, well, I could probably get a job as a gatekeeper at the zoo in Philadelphia. And then I said, could I be happy doing that? And I said, yeah, it sounds real appealing, actually. And, so you can strip yourself away from these fears that create this incapacitating feelings of anxiety and insecurity and not being good enough. And that doesn't solve the problem of how to find a job, but it does solve the problem of not, you've lost your job, but you haven't lost yourself. Mm-hmm. And if you have yourself and your joy and your self-esteem and your sense of humor, then you're not beating up on yourself. I think not only does it make your life emotionally 100 times easier, but when you have to cope and find something new to do, you can bring a spirit of joy to your job interviewing and to your job search. And that's certainly going to be a feather in your cap and eventually a little bit of money in your pocket.
Well, what the survey that we just did on the podcast.
Thinking exactly.
People were saying they don't want really super long podcasts. Right. We've been talking for 42 minutes. So perhaps now we should have just accept that we're dedicating this podcast to this one question and your beautiful answers.
To Megan Morrone, is that her last name?
Yes.
Yeah, and thank you, Megan, for giving us a great question, and good luck with your column, and we'll link to it as soon as you have it, so people can go and follow up. And if Megan, if you get a chance to listen to this podcast, we hope you'll really enjoy it, and good luck in your ongoing work and research, Megan, coming up with these topics that are so incredibly relevant to not only American people, but people all around the world.
Nice. Thank you, Matt.
What is Axios, by the way? Does either of you know?
What is it?
I think it's an online news website.
Oh, cool. She's the technical and science editor for Axios.
Yeah, very cool. I'm grateful for that question.
Well, they've got a great editor there coming up with wonderful questions.
That was fun.
All right. Thank you both.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda. We love you. And again, welcome back after your ordeal.
Thank you so much.
You haven't lost a step, Rhonda.
Oh, yeah, I have, but thank you.
This has been another episode of the Feeling Good podcast. For more information, visit Dr. Burns' website at feelinggood.com, where you will find the show notes under the podcast page. You will also find archives of previous episodes and many resources for therapists and non-therapists. We welcome your comments and questions. If you want to support the show, please share the podcast with people who might benefit from it. You could also go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. I am your host, Rhonda Borowski, the director of the Feeling Great Therapy Center. We hope you enjoyed this episode. I invite you to join us next time for another episode of the Feeling Good podcast.